Hey, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. And looks like we got a live stream on this nice cold day. It's not as cold as it is in other countries. It's Saturday, the 24th of January, 8:17 in the morning. And I don't think we're going to get rain today. But cold we got. I think this house, we don't run the heat at night. I think this house is colder than the apartment in the Bronx in New York I grew up in. I'm not sure. The wood burning stove was burning last night, so it kept some of the house kind of warm. So today we're going to have a nice high of 65 degrees. That's pretty good temperature. Rain, I don't see. Partial clouding in the morning, then sunny. Well, it appears I'll get hot water for free from the solar heater. Tomorrow, same 65. Then a shocker. Monday, 70. That's spring weather. Tuesday, 67. Wednesday, cloudy, 60. No, it's rainy. Wednesday, rainy. But I don't know how accurate the forecast will be out to Wednesday. They're giving it a high, like 65% of probability. And then no rain on Thursday or Friday, and high in the mid 60s. So, yeah, it looks like we're starting to come out of the cold winter. When you start hitting highs to 65, it's kind of nice. The dogs love it. They'd rather be out at 65 than 75 because they run around and, that's really great weather for them. And they can lay in the sun without getting hot. They love it. Right now, they'll go out in the cold. They'll go to the bathroom, and then they're okay coming home. And then if they stay out there, like Beulah will stay out there, and she'll be out maybe 15, 20 minutes, and she comes in, and I touch her, and her fur is cold, and she gets right in front of the heater, and she'll just stay there for a half hour, an hour, just make sure she warms up. And she'll stay a few inches away from the thing, and her fur gets really warm. But you see, the fur insulates them from heat and cold, so she's not getting the heat coming out of the heat lamp directly on her skin like we would. She's getting it on her fur, so it takes a little bit more heat to get in there, I guess. I don't know. All right, anyway, today I'm going to get more into prophecy and the war. And we're going to get into general prophecies and other things like Zechariah 12, Malachi 3 and 4. And we're going to try to see if we've reached a point where America is going to do evil in our sight and turn against us badly. They already are against us, and make it worse. And, things of this nature, what to expect, and how America plans to run the war. I'm going to read you a list of all their warships. It's rather extensive. It's over 20 right now. And their planes, as much as I can pick up, and possible ways Trump will run the war, and what Trump may or may not do, and how Israel is calling the Board of Peace actions in Gaza revenge against Netanyahu. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I'm not going to really spend a lot of time on the stuff you can hear and read elsewhere. I expect that cold storm with the ice and stuff is hitting America now. I heard 17 states got put under an emergency warning. Now, you don't need me to tell you what's going on about that if you live in America. But if you don't, it's pretty bad. I would reference that on the continuing whirlwind of the Lord. Whirlwind means a storm or a tempest, falling on the head of the wicked till it accomplishes its purposes. So that's what I would call that. So it looks like we're getting a breakout out of the cold weather. It'll take several days, but I think once we get into early February, we'll probably be running more or less at around 68 to 72, 73 degrees as our highs. And then if we're fortunate, by mid-February, we'll start getting up into 78, 80, and we'll be done with this winter. That's a good year. A bad year, you won't be done with the winter till first or second week of March. And that's ugly. You don't like that. I don't like that. All right. Then, all right, let's move on. I am going to explain to you something Trump is doing that's good for Israel, protecting Israel. So, I call it the way the cookie crumbles. I don't sit there and just twist and turn it to make it come out the way I want it to. I put it all in there. I call it the way the cookie crumbles. I don't sit there. But Trump overall is being ugly to Israel. Okay, I'll explain that to you. Do I support I think Netanyahu is the worst leader of Israel in thousands of years. I can't tell you the lowest opinion I have of him. Borderline human. That's how bad I look at him. Okay. I can't tell you the lowest opinion I have. Borderline human. That's how bad I look. Okay. I'm putting a post up, which is going to take a few seconds. That's it. I'm putting a post up. Going to take a few seconds. Okay. And let me shut the sound off. And it looks like we're good. All right. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. Now, I want to bring a couple of things out. There's a guy on Telegram that I follow and use his posts at times. I give this character credit for it. I always do that with the posts. Most of them, including the ones saying they're Christians, steal information from other people and refuse to give them credit for it. I don't do that. Okay? The only posts that I refuse to give, well, I make my own posts and I don't give anybody credit for that because I make it up. Okay, but when someone else puts a post up, I forward the post from their channel to my channel so they get all the credit for it. That's the fair way to do it. Okay? This particular character is making things up. A huge channel, hundreds of thousands of people making stuff up. I went to verify some things this character said, and it was false. He just made it himself, wrote it up himself. I can't understand, that's a really bad, a bad thing. And this character is doing that. So you have to be so careful. You go to these sites and they got 500,000, 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million, and you think they're going to be honest. They're not. They're terrible. You know how you could check them? You could use Google, or easier, just use a good AI program and put in there what they said and ask if it's true. They'll tell you if any other sites are carrying the story, or if it's just little crackpot sites and stuff like that. If it doesn't have any information about it, it might tell you that also. But frequently, it'll tell you, well, this is coming up as fake news, and these people generally don't just create a story, okay? Like, they're not going to say, oh, the United States just laid a bridge between New York and London. You could drive across the ocean. They won't do that. But they exaggerate stories to get you fearful. And sometimes to make you think like they do. And basically, look, if there's a war that breaks out, me and a lot of other people are going to get a lot higher hits. I'll start going from, maybe 1 to 2,000 in there somewhere hits to maybe 4, 5, 6,000. Okay? While there's a war. So they try to scare you. Okay? And they're monetized. I'm not monetized. They are. If I would get monetized, I would get more views from YouTube, but I don't monetize because I'm not supposed to sell anything. And they're not either, but they do. And you're not supposed to make merchandise out of God's people. They do. Okay. So, Iran said recently any attack against us is going to be considered an act of war. And what that tells us is that Iran's got some sort of intel or a hunch that Trump's going to do a limited attack on him like he did the last time on the nuclear facilities, and then go away and wait to see what Iran does. So Iran is being afraid of that. It's trying to tell them, you do that, this is what's going to happen. Iran is not behaving like a country with a big stick to swing. They're behaving as a country that has a couple of little sticks to swing, and they're scared. Now, the thing is, to invade and occupy Iran, I have to hand it to them. It would be a nightmare, okay? But to blow them up into oblivion, no, it's easy. It'll take weeks, but it's easy. You know? Does Trump have the guts for it is the big question. And I don't know now. I don't know. This business with the Venezuela drove him on. He's getting all high on that, you know. So let me read you. I'm going to read you a shopping list of various military assets that are in the region of the Middle East now for this Iran war. And I'm going to read the names of ships. Okay? And these are ships that can shoot Tomahawk or cruise missiles. The USS, now if it's an aircraft carrier, I'll let you know. But if it's not an aircraft carrier, it's generally going to be a destroyer or a missile cruiser, which are not exactly the same, but they're not exactly that different either. USS Mitchell, USS McFall, USS Oscar Austin. I don't know what Satan bots these are, but rest assured, they only named these after Satan bots. USS Roosevelt, that's a destroyer, not the Teddy Roosevelt aircraft carrier. USS Bulkley, USS Paul Ignatius, USS South Dakota, USS Georgia. Now, those are not Satan bot people, those are states, okay? Now we got the Lincoln Strike Group, which I think has the capacity to handle something like 350 to 450 Tomahawk missile launchers. The strike group of the Abraham Lincoln consists of the Abraham Lincoln and the escort destroyers, which are USS Frank E. Peterson, USS Spruance, USS Michael Murphy. They got 9 squadrons aboard the aircraft carrier. That a squadron, I think, is about 8. So they got about 72 planes on there. And they might have, that's squadrons of fighter jets, and then they probably have refueling tankers, AWACS, transports, and other things, okay? So they could get up to 90 planes on there. Other U.S. Navy ships in the area are USS Mount Whitney, USS Lewis B. Puller, USS Tulsa, USS Canberra, USS Santa Barbara, USNS Carl Brasher, USNS Henry Kaiser, USNS Bruce C. Heeson, USNS Marie Tharp. I don't know why they're not USS, they're USNS. US would probably be the United States Naval Service. I don't know. Okay. So we'll talk about planes on the ground that are ready to go, which would probably be Qatar and Jordan, maybe Saudi Arabia, probably Qatar and Jordan. 3 two F-35 squadrons. So now this information is increasing by the day. So that would be talking about 16 F-35s. I think they got more than that now. They're probably up to 25 or something. 3 F-15 squadrons. No, they're much higher on that. Okay, no. There were 50 F-15s, and that number has grown and growing. So by the time it's over, it's probably going to be between 60 and 75 F-15s. F-16 squadrons, we don't know. A-10 Warthog squadron or two, we don't know. Then we got Poseidon, P-8A Poseidon, and we got C-17As, big cargo transport personnel planes. We got KC-135 refuelers, probably a dozen of those laying around at least. It may be, it's probably closer to 15 or 16 or something. One refueling tanker can refuel 5 jets. So if you're running a group of 24 or so jets to hit something in Iran, you would put 5 refueling tankers up with them. That's it. Okay. Then they got Strato tankers, KC-46A. I don't know how many of those they got. Then they got Pegasus, KC-130J Super. Then they got Hercules, MQ-4C Triton. These are drones. Then they got U.S. Coast Guard ships. Isn't that unusual? I don't know why. They got U.S. Coast Guard cutter Charles Moulthrop, whatever that is. They got another cutter named Robert Goldman. They got another cutter named Glenn Harris. They got another cutter named MEN Tunnel? Maybe they're naming it after a tunnel, or the guy's name is Tunnel. I don't know. I don't know. The next one is Coast Guard cutter John Schwartzman. Another one, Clarence Sufin. They got way over 20 ships, okay? And it appears that the George Bush aircraft carrier is not being officially spoken about very much. You get little glimpses of it here and there. So where is this thing? Well, since it's not popping up in the Mediterranean near Israel, I think it's probably hanging out around Cyprus. It's out of range of anything out there. But the Iranian ballistic missiles that are hypersonic, they say, they're not going to be able to hit an aircraft carrier going 40 miles an hour zigzagging. They can't do that. I don't know why they're doing that, but they're doing that. You see, the other aircraft carrier, the Abraham Lincoln, is probably staying as far away from Iran as Cyprus is. Or something like that. You keep out of range. Now, as far as I know, the range could be maybe, like it might get to 12 or 1,400 miles or something like that. Trump is pretty scared about losing an aircraft carrier. 5,000 sailors gone. America will go nuts. What's Trump going to do? Get on TV and say, well, folks, this is a war. And in a war, things like this happen. And my thoughts are with the survivors of the 5,000 dead sailors, but we can't let that influence our decisions. And we got to be motivated by chasing the oil and natural gas and not pay attention to 5,000 dead sailors because they're not going to put any money in my pocket. No, he can't say that, you know. He doesn't seem at all interested in creating a false flag. He seriously wants to keep these aircraft carriers in one piece. The country of Jordan, which is sort of kind of across the water from the Persian Gulf, where Iran's on the other side, and it has a border with Israel. Just right, one of the border crossings is kind of near my house. So Jordan has become a land-based aircraft carrier. They're loading up aircraft in Jordan now. There's a lot of reasons for this. Back in 2024, Iran was firing swarm attacks at Israel. To overwhelm our air defenses. Predominantly drones and missiles, different kinds of missiles, cruise missiles, fast-moving ballistic missiles, and drones, which are not fast-moving. Jordan helped us and took down a bunch of these missiles over their airspace because Iran never got permission from Jordan to use their airspace. So Jordan got mad and took it down. That's the cover story. They were helping us. The F-15E, the Eagle Strike or Strike Eagle, was the jet that we used to do this. Now, it helped Israel because our air defenses get stressed too much. We can't handle it. So you have 80 drones and 30 missiles together, you got a problem. So America helped take down the drones. Now, the way they were doing it was with F-15E Eagles. And the F-15 is not a stealthy aircraft. It's not an extremely fast aircraft. It can move, but it's an amazingly versatile fighter. Okay. The F-35 is good for one thing, stealth. Okay. And that's important. It is very stealthy. But you can't load it up with weapons because to maintain stealth, you have to keep the weapons inside the fuselage of the plane or you ruin your stealth. Okay? There's not that many weapons you can stuff inside the F-35. The other thing is drop tanks for fuel. I'm sure you could adapt some sort of drop tanks to hang on the wings and the fuselage of the F-35 to give it greater range. The problem with that is these tanks are not stealthy and you lose stealth capability. Now, if they're flying predominantly in a low-risk region, let's say Israel F-35s are taking off inside Israel, and then they fly over Jordan, and then they fly over Iraq or Syria and Iraq, something like that, where there's no real threat of getting taken down because we've blown up their radar and they have no way to do it. Then you could fly the F-35 carefully with extra fuel tanks. And then when you start getting close to the danger zone in Iran, you basically drop the fuel tanks and now you've returned to stealth. You understand? I think Netanyahu likes using refueling tankers as well. So, here's the kicker. The F-15E, which Israel has these too, we got a bunch of them, dozens. They carry 30 laser-guided rockets. If that's your predominant emphasis, you want to load them up, you load them up with 30 laser-guided rockets. Now, you could also carry bombs too, to some extent. I'm guessing these are 2 3/4 inch rockets. They're not real big rockets because blowing up a drone doesn't take a lot. And one F-15 can take down 30 laser-guided drones, or let's say maybe 27, 28, because you might have misses, but you might not. So if you send a squadron of 4 of these guys up, they could take down 130 drones, which is a massive swarm. If you send 8 up, they can take out 260. If you send 16 out, they could take down 500 drones. Now, in addition to this, F-16s can shoot drones down, and helicopters, attack helicopters. So Israel has F-15s, we have F-16s, we have helicopters, so we can shoot them down also. Then you have Iron Dome, now Iron Beam. You know, you got all kinds of stuff. Now, the idea is to free our air defense systems from drones, so we just have to worry about missiles. Okay? Their drones can be nasty. For instance, some of these Iranian drones they use cost them, at their economic level, about $20,000 to build. Their labor's cheap. If you were going to build it in America, it'd probably cost you $900,000 or something. Seriously, or something like that. Maybe that's too much. Maybe it only costs $350,000, but it would be much, much higher. And some of these drones have electronic jamming, which isn't going to work well with laser guided because lasers are not electronic, they're light. Sorry, Iran, you lose. You also, what they also do is they put a decoy inside the big drone. The decoy gets launched out of the drone when it's in a critical area, and it doesn't do nothing. It flies, it doesn't have a warhead, it doesn't collect information or anything like that. It emulates the drone. So it makes an attack system think it's a drone, and it is, but it's not of any credible value. And the idea is you attack this drone instead of the real drone. This is a common approach used to protect fighter jets by America, Israel, and I'm sure other countries. They carry drones that send out radio signals and heat signals to make attacking missiles, drones, or whatever think this fake drone, a fake jet drone is the fighter jet. And the missile should hit it instead of the real thing. So if you're trying to do this to fool Israel or America or Great Britain, it's probably not going to work too good. But if you're trying to fool Iran, you're probably going to fool them. Maybe not, maybe so. The Iranians are not the village idiots like the Houthis and Hamas and stuff like that. They can do a much better job, So America has every intention of doing what? Well, there's a lot of air power in Qatar from America. They need to protect Qatar. These F-15s will be doing that. They need to protect the UAE. F-15s will probably do that too. But the UAE is not a first-tier target. Your first-tier targets are Qatar and Jordan, and the F-15s will be protecting them. Now, drones coming to Qatar and Jordan could likely be drones on the way to Israel also. So you're not going to get a drone to come to Israel without really crossing Qatar or Jordan or maybe Iraq, and Syria has to be watched also. Now, I don't know what we're going to do in Syria because that moron Erdogan gave a big radar system to Syria to curtail. His goal was that Syria would know when and if Israel was going to strike in Syria, so he gave him a good radar system. But the problem with that is it could also be used to help Iran. I don't think Syria wants to help Iran, but you never know. I wouldn't want to bank on that. So If Israel takes it out, it's going to irritate Turkey. Does that mean Turkey's going to attack Israel? No. I don't think Turkey has the guts to attack Israel yet. Someday they'll try, but maybe in a week, but not today. So in order to enable us to take down missiles and drones flying over Syria with our aircraft, we would probably need to take out that radar. So that radar has probably got target packages right now. And when the festivities begin, that radar is going to go. And if Syria has 2 or 3 other radars that are worth anything, they'll go too. Now, did Erdogan give Syria mobile missile launchers that could take down Israeli jets? And I doubt he has them. I don't know. If he did give them to Syria, Israel knows about it and they will take them down. Rest assured. Okay. I got pictures on Telegram of tunnels they found in Syria. And, they look like nice hotels. And, not what you think, That Bashar Assad, indulged himself with nice tunnels of him and his family, and the big shots had to go in, his family's got a lot of members. If they had to go into the tunnels, they'd be pretty comfortable. Now, you might have to stay in the tunnels for a few weeks if you're in an exaggerated war. It could be you're going to be there for weeks, months. So, I don't think they had indoor swimming pools and saunas and stuff like that, but what I think they had was nice furniture bedrooms, nice beds, climate control, water. They probably had showers, maybe a bathtub. They had freezers, they had electricity and they had freezers and refrigeration to keep a lot of food in there and a lot of water, and they might have had a lot of booze or I don't know what, Okay. So is Trump just trying to defend Israel? No. The other defensive areas are going to be Qatar and Bahrain also, and but predominantly Qatar and Jordan, along with Israel. So yeah, he does intend to do it. Okay. Now these F-15s could also be used for striking. They could strike naval assets. They could strike land-based targets in Iran. Now Iraq is going to get it too. So the radar in Iraq got to go. So Israel, in the early stages of the war, assuming that Trump starts it, Israel may or may not get called in. You got to understand that they may just leave Israel the heck alone. Why? Iran doesn't get, if Israel attacks Iran, then Iran's going to attack Israel. Okay? That's a given. But if Israel doesn't attack Iran, Trump does Germany, France, and the UK, and Trump are attacking him and Israel's not, why would Iran say, oh, I'm going to go attack Israel, I'm going to get even with Trump? Trump doesn't care if you attack Israel. Trump cares if you attack Mar-a-Lago, Trump Towers in New York, that kind of thing, okay? The White House, the Capitol, the Congress, that he cares about. Probably would be real upset if somebody took out the Statue of Liberty. I'm not telling you should pray for that. Or maybe I am. All right. So, what, Iran just has a deficit for attacking Israel. So it may just leave Israel alone. But if Israel goes into Syria and destroys the radar, that's not going to get Iran to attack. If Israel goes into Iraq and destroys the radar, it will get Iran threatening in her, but it's still not going to get them to attack, I don't think. Okay? So Israel's got to get rid of the radar systems in Syria and Iraq. So if the time comes, it can fly non-stealth jets without a big risk and refueling tankers without a big risk over these two countries to get to Iran. Understand? And historically, in the previous wars in the last 3 years or so, this was the MO we did. So it'll probably be done. Now, there's a chance that they could try to work something out with Syria. Like Trump gets in and says, you let Israel pass and don't do anything. If you shoot at Israel, it's the same thing as shooting at America, And then he just lets Israel pass. He doesn't report it to Iran or anything. But that's an example of Israel trusting an ISIS, Al-Qaeda idiot with a new paint job not to betray us. I don't think that's going to happen. Nah. They'll blow it up. And they don't like it being there anyway. So it'll go. It'll get cleared with Trump. Trump will either say, blow it up, or let me talk to Erdogan in Syria and see if I can get them to not use it against you. And he'll be sincere about it. All right. Now, this is an attack on Iran that Iran never saw the likes of before, because they got NATO breathing down their neck. They got the UK, France, and Germany, 3 very, very large, substantial players in this that have put aircraft in Cyprus. There's only one reason for that, to hit Iran. And they're in Qatar and Jordan. So they're in. And they're going to be attacking Iran. Remember, they put the crushing snapback sanctions into place against Iran. So Iran has definitely got an axe to grind with them, and they got one to grind with Iran. So here is where Iran is seriously disadvantaged. With these countries, unless I'm wrong, and Russia and China gave Iran different missiles that are much longer range, they can't attack the UAE, they can't attack the UK or France or Germany. Germany can attack them, but they can't counterattack. So what would they do if Trump just hangs out in the breeze, right, with both fingers on triggers, and France, Germany, and the UK start bombing Iran? What happens? Did you ever think of this? Well, would they just go out and attack America anyway? They can't attack America homeland unless they got special missiles from China. I doubt they can. Can they just go pop off and say, oh, well, we'll just attack the American bases anyway? Well, that's pretty unprovoked, isn't it? America didn't attack Iran. It's an interesting twist. Do I think this will happen? Not really. But I think it's probably a 50% chance that Trump will tell Israel to just lay in the background and wait. And if we need you, we'll bring you in. But if you go in, then you're going to start taking missiles from Iran. If you don't go in, then I think Iran's going to be afraid to attack you. Remember, this is recompenses. The nations lose, not Israel. You got to get that. Look at all the victories we had in this 2.5-year war thing. Did Hamas win? No. Did Syria win? No. Is Syria a busted up mess? Yes. Is Gaza a busted up mess? Yes. Did Lebanon, Hezbollah and Lebanon win? No. Did we blow a bunch of their stuff up? Oh yeah, big time. Did Iraq win? No. Did Iran win? No. Did Yemen win? No. Did Egypt win? Nobody won. Nobody got over on us. Okay? Now, in a war, there's really a lot of people say there's no victor, but there can be a victor if you're Trump and Iran can't attack Trump and Trump could attack Iran. So there could be a real victor there. Now, on the other hand, Trump may tell Israel, go open up the door, which means Israel will go in and take out the radar. And that's a possibility. Not that Trump couldn't do it, because he's very capable of doing it. And these aircraft carriers are bringing F-35Cs with them, which is the aircraft carrier version of the F-35. I don't know how many, but they probably each got 10 or something, or 12, or, The F-35 is a pretty respectable plane for various, air-to-ground attacks and air-to-air attacks and all that. But its predominant massive feature is stealthiness. F-16s can be set up to a degree of stealth. They don't really talk much about it, but it might be that you could still get a lock on the thing or something. So, but the F-16 and the F-15 are the ones that carry a lot of the ordnance, the bombs, the rockets, and also you gotta remember, because we're in recompenses, really remember that you and me and the New York Times and all of this, none of us know what really can happen or will happen. And I would tell you to expect twists and turns. Maybe the Israeli government and military get destroyed now. I'm dead serious. That could be. That wouldn't surprise me at all. I don't know. I'd probably be in really bad shape if that happened, because I would probably start jumping up in the air and clicking my heels for joy, and I might be too old to be able to land safely. But that would be the time when you start rejoicing if that happens, because you know the end is close. Oh, yeah. So that's time to really rejoice if they do that. So a lot of people don't like me. They don't want to listen to me. They get scared. They want me to say, oh, Israel having its military and infrastructure destroyed is a horrible thing. Yeah, because they don't know any better and they want everything to continue the way it is. Well, the Lord doesn't want everything to continue the way it is, and I don't either, because it's horrible. Who wants to live with Satan bots in control? You don't know it yet, a lot of you, well, when you find out what it's like when he runs all the demons out of Israel and what Israel is like without all of that, you're going to be in awe. This piece of crap, Satan and his demons, make you weary. It runs you down. Do we run him down back? Yeah, we do, but we're small in number. You know, that's why he's so big on false churches. Imagine if there was 3,000 or 4,000 real churches that spoke the true gospel, and they got the people together in the congregation. They didn't have bad ones in the congregation. They were in the true gospel, and they started using the keys of the kingdom against Satan. And I mean, Satan would fall apart. He couldn't handle that. And then they have a Tuesday spiritual warfare meeting at somebody's house or houses. Then they got a Thursday spiritual warfare meeting, 2 times a week, let's say. And you got tens of thousands of people attacking Satan. You see, this is the covetous people that have been watching me for years that won't do offerings. Because if I got those offerings, I would expand it. I would have put these videos in different languages. And we would have been building up in many countries, teaching spiritual warfare and stuff, right? And that would have been one of my first emphases, was teaching the church isn't the church, teaching what real prophecy says, and spiritual warfare. And as you know, spiritual warfare is a tremendously enjoyable experience. Once you get away from, thinking Satan's going to retaliate against you or something like that, you get into a tremendous, good feeling, and then you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. And, if you had tens of thousands, you had 20, 30,000 people doing it a few days a week. Imagine what Satan would have his hands full. So the people that don't give offerings don't care about anybody else. You got to understand that. Because they're not going to be where you're going to be. They're going to be in other places. I'm saying they're going to likely, a lot of them are going to have a doom and gloom future, in my opinion. This is me talking, not the Lord. And because they don't care about other people. So they're never going to get like the book of Acts 2, where people were sharing, they were selling stuff to help the needs of others in the Kehillah, in the congregation. They'll never do that, these people. They're only here to take, not to give. So now, is there a possibility some of them may change when Yeshua appears in the cloud? Absolutely. And then we have to forgive them. There's no point in holding a grudge against them. But the other side of the coin is a lot of them are so dark in their heart and so evil, they're not going to make it. They're not. It's one thing to talk about the Jews that don't know anything because their eyes have been blinded and their ears have been shut, but 2/3 get cut off. Why? Because they're that black-hearted and evil. they get cut off. They don't make it. Okay? So don't, these people are going to think, oh, God will forgive me. I can have all my money. No. God's not going to forgive them so quickly because this is covetous. It's money is the root of all evil, and there's a whole lot of other evil in these people. You got to remember that. They got a whole lot of other evil in them. That's why they're covetous. It's a result of their other evil, pretty much. It's, it could be the covetous started it and brought in other evil, but it could be that the other evil brought in covetousness. Okay. Several airlines, including Lufthansa, Air France, KLM, and Swiss Air, I believe, have canceled their Saturday flights to the Middle East, including to and from Israel, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia. It wasn't exclusive to Israel. They probably canceled Qatar and stuff like that too. In addition to them, we have United Airlines and Air Canada canceling flights to Israel and probably other Middle Eastern countries too. It doesn't say that though. So now, some people are saying, oh, the reason they're canceling flights is the government told them that they should cancel the flights. Probably not true, although it could be. I don't want to say for sure it's true. It could be true. But I'll tell you what I know from my old experience, law enforcement and stuff like that. Companies like this, big companies, hire retired people that come out of intelligence services. It could be NSA, it could be CIA, it could be MI5, MI6. It could be a lot of different intelligence services, but in America, normally they'll get America, military intelligence, naval intelligence, but they're not hiring sergeants and lieutenants. They're going to go after generals who frequently aren't looking for a job, but sometimes they are. But a lot of generals are going, and admirals are going out with 30, 35 years of service. So they're older people. But majors and colonels, these are people that know a lot of stuff. And they have friends in military and intelligence in various countries that they could talk to without going into red areas where you're violating secrecy acts, okay? So in other words, they wouldn't necessarily, they would pose a question. The airline wants to know if we should suspend flights to the Middle East. And then if I tell them yes, and it's a false alarm, I'm in a bad way. I could get fired, so can you advise me? That's probably the way it goes, okay? Now, the other side of that coin is Trump could be worried that there's too many airliners running around when this fight starts, so he might have told them this is a good time to cut your flights, but it doesn't mean there's going to be a war. It means there's likely going to be a war. So some of them didn't cancel the flights and others did. The ones that didn't cancel the flights are probably banking on a last minute detouring the flights if they have to or canceling them. This is probably what they're banking on. the other airlines just want to get in early so people don't book the flights, and then they don't have the problem of getting people stranded and having to pay hotel bills and figuring out how to get them out of there, and stuff like this. Um, Sometimes they actually do pay your hotel bill. I've had them give me um, vouchers to go to a hotel, and when you go to the hotel, you don't get a bill. You just give them the voucher, and that's it. Now you can't make phone calls long distance. You can't do the food and the refrigerator and that kind of stuff unless you give them a credit card. But just using the room, that you can do. Um, so the airlines don't want any of this. So um, now what the airlines pay for a hotel room isn't going to be what you pay. And I was flying, I think, business or something. So maybe that's why, or maybe I wasn't business. I was just flying regular. I can't remember what happened, but it was an okay hotel. It wasn't anything great, like a Holiday Inn level or something like that. The guy that's the head of CENTCOM in the Middle East, the four-star general, what they would call El Jefe, right? He is in Israel today. Now, this is another war drum of the highest level. These guys have been coming to Jordan. Now this one's coming to Israel, admirals, four-star generals. So something is going on here, and is Trump just trying to scare Iran? If he is, he's an idiot. And he is an idiot, I think, because he doesn't understand them. And this is definitely not going to work. Iran isn't going to do anything unless bombs and missiles fall. And then they're not going to do anything for days because they're going to keep trying to fight back, hoping to get the other guy to give up and make a deal with them. The problem is that they could wind up with NATO attacking them. And how would that look? Oh, it would look like, let's say Romania and Poland, they each send 15 planes, So let's say you get another 15 countries each send, planes, you got another 250 planes bombing Iran. What's that look like? It looks like the prophecy in Jeremiah 49 about Elam. It's going to be a wasteland and people are going to have to leave. They have to leave and they get scattered into all the other countries and they get followed by the sword, which cuts them off. Now, what about Iraq? Yes, I think Iraq is in there. Well, why would he cut all of them off? They're not all warmongers and stuff like that. Well, a lot of them are Muslims, and I don't know. I'm not God. I don't know what he sees, but he doesn't see them as his people. Not in Elam. Not in Edom, which is Yemen. The Israelites, the Jews, the Israelites that were in Yemen came out when? 60s, 50s? Emergency airlifts. They're nice people. The Yemenite Jews, they're really nice people. Now they've assimilated into Israelis, and so, a lot of Israelis are anything but nice. So, I knew them in the 90s, and they were pretty good people. I didn't have any problem with them. But everybody in Israel was pretty good people back then. People used to be friendly. Netanyahu was the problem. Delta Airlines also canceled their Middle East flights. So you Lufthansa, Air France, KLM, United, Delta, Swiss Air. It's probably by now another 4 or 5 that are doing it. So it's going to be very hard to get flights in or out. You're not going to get flights out because there's no planes. They take their planes that are here, they'll do the outgoing flight, and they're not going to do an incoming flight. So there's no replacement planes except for El Al. And when things get tight like that, El Al pops up charging like $3,500 to go to the United States and back for coach, or it might even be $4,500. So they gouge. Netanyahu doesn't care. Yeah, gouge. Everybody got to make a buck. He's a piece of garbage. Netanyahu. The Iranian delegation to the UN, speaking to the UN. Our army is prepared for the worst case scenarios, and we hope that the military buildup will not lead to a real confrontation. There's a rumor that they said that that if they collapse, the region will collapse, and that's something somebody made up. They never said that. Someone in Telegram made that up. So I was trying to figure out how the region could collapse, and if anything, it'd probably go the other way. Hamas can't further collapse, neither can Hezbollah, neither can Syria. Iraq can definitely collapse, and Yemen can definitely collapse, but that's about it. Maybe they intend to shut the oil down, but that's not going to collapse. All right. So where Trump is turning against Israel is his board of peace. Trump has been pressuring Israel to reopen the Rafah crossing before the recovery of the last fallen soldier dead body. And Trump is saying they think that America thinks it knows where the body is. Listen, this is standard Muslim procedure with the terrorists, and it's nothing unusual for them. And what they're doing is they're holding back from returning one dead body because it just shows the other Muslims how rebellious they are and how they don't really respect any treaties they make. Okay, that's what happens. All right. So, there's Turkey and Qatar, I believe, have joined the Board of Peace that Trump has set up. And so did Netanyahu. And there's a lot of Arab nations on this Board of Peace. Italy said, I think Italy and maybe Germany and the UK or something, I think Italy and Germany told Trump, you got to change things around the way you set up the Board of Peace and then we could join it. In other words, they don't want to join with Netanyahu, with Trump being the lifetime chairman of the whole thing and having the power to block votes and veto. He's got sole veto power. And if he doesn't want to use his veto power, he could stop certain countries from actually voting. And he's got 20-something countries, 24 or so. He'll probably have 30 before we're done. Now, some of these 24 countries may have recognized it as a responsible body that has to get listened to and something like that. The United States didn't, but they may have. So if they come up with a decision for Gaza that Netanyahu doesn't want to agree to, you listening? And then Netanyahu says, no, I'm not doing it. Who the heck are you? And then the countries turn around and say, we're going to enforce it. That's where Trump is stabbing us in the back. Hamas is still in control of an area. There's the yellow line, which is, it would be east. So between the sea and the yellow line, they're controlling an area in Gaza, substantially, not the whole thing, but a good area. So only an idiot's going to believe they're disarming, and Trump seems to believe they will because they gave a verbal indication of it. But I didn't hear that verbal, I never got a report in anywhere that said, oh, Hamas said they're going to disarm. But Trump seems to be acting like they said it. He lies a lot. Trump is saying, well, we're going to put a port into Gaza. We're going to put an airport in there. Well, he needs it. He's got to bring in shiploads of material for construction, and he's got to take out possibly, what are they going to do with all the debris and some stuff? They might put it on ships and take it out, but that's pretty expensive. I doubt they're going to do that. He needs ships to bring in equipment and supply, lumber, sheetrock, tile, carpet, concrete, tar for streets, pipes for water, all this stuff. He needs to bring ships in. Thousands of ships loaded up with this. And he needs an airport to bring in more spoilage type goods like foods, and to bring personnel in that are going to work in Gaza. Now, you're going to bring personnel in to work in Gaza. Where do they sleep? Well, we could say they're going to drive in from Egypt, go to work, and then drive back at 5 o'clock. Yeah. Or what? They could hire Israeli laborers, but that's going to cost triple what it'll cost to hire Arabs. Jordan can't work. They can't get over there. The only one that could really get over there is Egypt. That'll mean weapons smuggling will rise again, unless Israel controls checking all the people coming in to do labor. But the Board of Peace isn't going to let Israel do that. They'll make their own arrangements, and then more weapons will come in. Do you see what's going on?
Yes.
Okay. Jared Kushner came up with some sort of a map, showing what he wants to do with the place along the lines of Trump, you know, casino resorts. And, he wants to put apartments up there. Well, sure, they're going to be, vacation condos, they'll have apartments for any remaining Gazans to stay in. Now, can you put them to work in construction and stuff? To some great extent, yeah, like rubbish removal, painting, maybe, right? The other set areas, where you need skill, they'll have to bring in labor. But Trump is taking the control of Gaza away from Israel. In other words, so Israel, you got no say anymore about what goes on in Gaza. Now, if the Board of Peace says we're not going to disarm Hamas, that's the way it is, Netanyahu. Shut up and go home. So the way this could develop, because Trump is that bad, is they're not disarming Trump. Get used to it, okay? I'm not going to go in there and blow up 30,000 of these people and see what world opinion does to me after I kill 30,000 of them. And I'm not going to let you kill 30,000 of them either. So he's liberating our enemies to come kill us again another day. How do you think Jehovah feels about that? He's upset, believe me, mad. Okay? Now, Trump has so far never stopped at anything because Hamas is failing to disarm. So imagine a Hamas not disarming, there being a port there and an airport. I mean, Trump is just such a moron. Guys, he's ruining your America. You don't know it. He's ruining it for you. He is. So Netanyahu, with the Board of Peace, has no control, but Trump has control. And it's heavily loaded with Muslims that hate Israel. I mean, who likes Israel? Nobody. How do you become friends with Trump? Well, you go there and you submit yourself to Trump as a nation, right? Throwing yourself on his mercy and hoping he has mercy on you. And if he doesn't, he'll crush you right there. So Trump wants complete submission to him. And then, just to show you that he's the supreme leader, he wants to get rid of Supreme Leader Khomeini, and he wants to be a supreme leader of the world, not just a country, the whole world. So what he does is you submit to him, and instead of showing you a lot of mercy, mercy would be shown, but he would also stab you in the back a couple of times just to see what you do. And if you put up with it, then he'll likely maybe keep you around and just keep So Trump is very difficult, and now he's in the process of putting Netanyahu down. And this border peace thing is not going over well in Israel. They came in on October 7th and cut fetuses out of women's abdomens, took children and parents, tied them together with wire and lit them, burned them alive. Quite a few people they burned alive. They took people hostages. Most of the women they took as hostages never came back alive. They probably raped them to death. They raped people in front of their families, their children. They're really sick, okay? This is a sick bunch of demented people living in Gaza, okay? And they're trying to keep them alive. Why? Because that's what Satan wants. These are people that behave like Gazans, are Satan's chosen people. Those are the traits that Satan likes. That's how Satan is. So, that's what's going on. And do I think there's going to be a point where Israel and Trump break before the two witnesses come? Yeah, I do. Maybe not start killing each other right away, but they're going to not get along. Trump's impossible, okay? You can't get along with Trump. You can't. It's impossible. If you try the, yes, sir, Mr. Trump, anything you say, Mr. Trump, then you're a moron and me too, and he gets rid of you. Nobody gets along with him. That's why he changes his cabinet a lot, you know. Although he hasn't been doing it this time. Trump is now going to start seeking his credibility in the things he does from the border peace. Well, there's a lot of countries that aren't paying attention to the border of peace. That's a problem for Trump. He can't use the border peace in Europe with the Ukraine-Russia war. Russia and Ukraine are not in it. As far as I know, Ukraine's not. So Trump's not going to be using the U.S. Congress to run Gaza. He's going to use the border peace, which the Supreme Court and the Congress have no control over. Trump's on thin ice. Is Trump going to ask the border peace if he can attack Iran? Heck no. I don't think so. He started this thing as a campaign to get a bunch of countries to commit to putting soldiers together to disarm Hamas. And then the place would be turned into Trump casino resorts type area, Gaza would. Not just Trump, all kinds of people around the world would be buying hotel casinos there. And who do they pay for the land when they buy it? It's Israel's land, but they're going to pay Trump or America. Who lost a lot of soldiers? Who has injured soldiers? Who spent billions of dollars fighting to get Hamas to pretty much stop running Gaza, but Israel? And he wants to have Israel spend perhaps dozens and dozens of billions of dollars removing the rubbish out of Gaza, which Netanyahu apparently agreed to, that idiot. And he's really abusing Israel, making a mockery of Yehovah. And that's where this is going. And I'm telling you, it's reaching a point. I think the Board of Peace may have been the point where it's time for the daughter of Babylon to be wiped out. Trump is trying to grow from running the daughter of Babylon to creating a new empire. Now, he's been getting a lot of tossed salads. He might have dreamed this stuff up on his own, not from Satan. It's clever, but stupid. Okay. The difficulty that they got with this Board of Peace and leaving Hamas armed is, I don't understand how they could do any construction work in Gaza with Hamas running around armed. I have no idea how that could happen. I don't think it can. They would just shake them down for money and stuff. I don't see it. So the big head of CENTCOM is coming today, or he's here today. And he's obviously briefing Israel about the war, and he's obviously going to be giving reassurances to Israel about the war. And he's likely wants to get a rundown on Israel's defenses, and maybe I don't think he's going around inspecting. He's just talking, Now, this is interesting. The U.S. dollar share of global foreign currency reserves has fallen to its lowest since the year 2000. This is what Trump is going to war about, the dollar and the value of the dollar and the demand for the dollar, because the countries aren't using dollars that much, so they don't need to keep it in their reserves. Instead, they'll keep yuan or something else. So this is what Trump is going to war. And the reason he's mad at Iran is Iran's in BRICS, and BRICS wants to sell as much oil as they can, not on the U.S. dollar or the euro, I guess, too, but the U.S. dollar. And that will reduce the demand for the U.S. dollar more. And then the US dollar gets weaker and weaker, and if the US dollar gets weak enough, then they could break America economically, which would lead to its downfall. And that's why Trump is backing Zelensky to the nines with whatever he needs to fight Russia. And what does Zelensky keep doing? Hitting oil refineries and oil storage facilities. He keeps hitting pipelines, LNG stuff. He's attacking Russian oil because that's what Uncle Trump wants. So that keeps BRICS weak. So if Russia is gone, which is apparently Trump's goal, he'll move in somehow for the minerals and the oil if there's anything left. And the International Center for Human Rights, International Center for Human Rights, which happens to be based in Canada, is saying the following. More than 43,000 were killed in the protests in Iran since December 28. That's when the protests apparently were started. They're saying over 43,000. I told you 20,000 to 50,000. Okay? Someplace in there. They're saying more than 350,000 were injured and more than 10,000 have been blinded. So they were probably using some type of highly toxic chemical agent. The pepper sprays and the tear gas generally don't leave people blinded. It's common for police and military organizations to expose people to tear gas so they know what it feels like. And they usually give you a pretty good dose of it where you might be gagging and vomiting. Your eyes will be watery and you're not going to see. And the idea for giving people this is not to just see how much of a torture they can take. The idea of giving it to them is so they understand what it's like for the crowd when they attack a crowd with tear gas. Pepper spray is, again, you're going to be messed up maybe for an hour, that's probably about it, So what they were doing to cause blindness, real blindness, I don't know what they were using. I don't know. Most people don't want to bother with using something like that because it's probably against the things you could use in wartime. It'd be a war crime, and who knows. So when you're shooting laser-guided rockets at drones, what usually is the case is you paint the drone with the laser. In other words, it gets hit, and then the laser tracks it. It follows it, and then it trashes it, blows it up. You got to remember we're in recompenses, so things are not going to go well with the enemies of Israel. They're going to think everything is the same, but it's clearly not. And they're not going to get the nice, good results they think they used to get in the past. So while Trump thinks everything's going to be great if he attacks Iran, don't believe that. It could go that way, but I doubt it. Because it's a very severe threat to Israel. So God may let the United States and other countries destroy it, and then he'll deal with them. So he might use them for this, but basically the Lord's not happy with America's behavior, believe me, towards Israel. And that's what recompense is about, the controversy over Zion. What he's doing with Gaza is sick. Okay, it's just a continuation of Biden. Don't talk about things you don't know, okay? Why are you saying that I'm doing that? Stay on your lane. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't go too far. Okay, still have no idea what you're talking about. Are you going to impress us with your great knowledge? Oh, he's saying, talk about my own people, leave other people alone. So I do detect anti-Semitism here. Oh, he's just loading the chat up. Sounds like a Muslim to me, where it says don't go too far. That's the way a Muslim talks. Okay. It's nearly Sunday in New Zealand. Yeah, I know. That's weird how things go like that. Very weird. I got knocked off my own live stream. There we are. See if I got anything. Well, I don't have any questions. Okay, so we don't know what's going to happen. Okay. And we do know that Iran, well, it actually is the word Elam, which is likely Iraq and Iran and maybe pieces of Syria, get destroyed at this time. But that doesn't mean Trump does it. It doesn't mean it happens today. And we know America, the daughter of Babylon, gets destroyed, but we don't know what happens today. So maybe something happens and Iran has a real surprise for America and actually can attack America. Now, the other thing you got to understand is Iran may use these ships it has that are disguised as commercial vessels to approach America. They could already be inside America, and they launch missiles inside America or from America's shore into America. We don't know if they'll do that or not do that. Somebody likely will. From my understanding of prophecy, I do not think that Trump is going to be given a chance to kill, 2 or 3 million people in Israel, and then, you know, things kick into gear. I don't think so. But again, I don't know so, and I know that 2/3 get cut off, but I don't know if that's done by enemies. From what I could tell, no, I don't think it is at all. Now, can an attack on Iran destroy the Israeli government and the military? Yes. Could that happen easily? Sure, they just hit Jerusalem, the government buildings, they hit airports, they hit infrastructure, power generators, military bases. Predominantly, what they would do is just hit military bases and mess up America, mess up Israel. Could that happen? Yeah. All Trump has to do is just sit back and let it happen. They will do evil in your sight, speaking of America. So we got to watch this. And when I studied prophecy, trying to find something about America and Trump, it could be that Trump gets assassinated, because there's some indications in prophecy that happens. Because he gets killed like another guy, and the other guy was assassinated. So it could be Trump getting assassinated. Could it be the attempted assassination on Trump? No, because he wasn't president then, so I doubt that. Could the Iranians be cooking up an assassination for him as we speak? Yeah. Could they do it? My personal opinion, I don't think they're that good, but maybe. See, the Iranians are trying to survive the attack. They're in their minds, they're confident nobody's doing a ground invasion and occupation, because that would take millions. That would be like 3 million troops. And that would be like, 3,500 tanks, 1,100 aircraft, 80 or 90 Navy vessels. It would be a massive. And how long would it take? Probably maybe 18 months. A year would be fast. It would take a long time. And would China and Russia help Iran? Yeah. Would they go to war for Iran? I don't know, but they would help Iran. So I don't know. I don't think Trump wants something to drag on a long time. Trump wants to get Khomeini out of there. He wants Iran intact. He wants the Shah's son there. And he wants Chevron and the other American oil companies running the oil in Iran, making good profits and taking care of Trump. And that's what he really wants to see happen. But he doesn't, if he wants that, he doesn't understand the people, the Iranian people. He doesn't understand the Middle East. He just doesn't understand it. So, we've been in recompenses for a long time. The Lord told me August 10, 2023, we're in recompenses. It's not a year, it's a prophetic time period called the Shanat. It's not a calendar year. And we've been in it a long time. We've been fighting wars. We've been having soldiers killed. We've been having an abundance of terrorist attacks. We got all kinds of economic problems. And we have the yoke from within on us from Netanyahu. The latest thing I heard was this Ben Gvir right-wing guy. They don't like Christians and they don't like Messianics. They're trying to set up some kind of a Stasi or secret police or Gestapo organization to go after people that criticize the government. Do you understand? So people like me that say Netanyahu's a piece of garbage would be hunted down, get persecuted. There'd be no free media. Who wants that? They'll throw the Messianics out of Israel. Is that something we're going to see? No. The only thing I see is general references in prophecy that they made people leave Israel, in the past. Are they going to do that now? I don't see it. I see other things happening, and I see a lot of believers in Jerusalem, and I see the two witnesses. No, I don't think so. I don't think the two witnesses would put up with that. And they're pretty far away from something like that. I don't think so. But what they're after is they don't want the left-wing protesters interfering with the government. That's their big concern there. But that could cause a revolution in Israel because they set Israel up as one of their phony democracies, and you're supposed to have free speech and the right to protest. You don't have the right to shoot people in your protest or burn buildings down, but you got the right to protest. And they don't want that right to protest to be valid anymore. And that's not a democracy. And Netanyahu is probably would like this. Sadly, I think the way Herzog is talking, he's going to give Netanyahu a pardon and shut the court cases off with it. But I have a feeling that the court may turn around and say you can't do a pardon without guilty verdict or somebody owning up to the crime, admitting it. So that might put us we may wind up in some sort of a civil war, but I don't see that in prophecy either. But when I see the siege coming, I don't see the military, and I don't see the government of Israel. So that's already gone. So how does it get gone? I don't know. Could it be from this attack from Iran and Iraq? They'll both be attacking. And Yemen, maybe. Iran may have fine-tuned their missiles where they could hit the military bases and take out the military bases and kill a lot of soldiers, or I don't know what. It doesn't tell us, so I could. This board of peace could very, very well be responsible for the siege because Israel doesn't listen to them. And then they call as a threat. They have the nations surround Israel. The surrounding nations move on the borders and kind of do nothing in, nothing out in Israel to cut our economy down or something like that, and make us agree to submit to something, and that's when the two witnesses kill them. That specifically is found in Zechariah chapter 12, verse 6. So this could be a great big event in prophecy, and we don't know. It doesn't appear to be some little light-hearted thing that's going to go away, like what's going on in Minneapolis. I mean, that's not going to overthrow Israel or turn the world on its ear. It's something going on, but it's not going to be. It could start other events and stuff, but this thing with Iran could definitely be a chain reaction of events. It could definitely be that. What is China and Russia going to do? Nobody talks about that. Why? Nobody knows. Can we say for sure China and Russia are just going to suck it up and let Iran go? That's the end of BRICS. BRICS' purpose is to trade without the dollar, and the oil is the big thing. And China and India are in BRICS, and they're two massive consumers of oil. And if Iran's gone, and Iran right now, and Russia right now has restrictions on how much gas it's selling, it can't supply that much anymore because of what Ukraine did to it, and Trump running around grabbing the black, the undercover fleets they're using to break sanctions with the oil. Venezuela oil is suffering from that too. So India's not so likely to go to war right now that I could see could happen, but China could. See, if China's oil gets cut down and China gets into a war with, say, I don't know, America, for instance, what happens to China without oil? Well, they lose the war. Why? Well, your naval vessels go through. I mean, a naval vessel probably burns a gallon every 5 to 15 feet. Really? Oh, yeah, really. Planes go through the stuff like there's no tomorrow. Trucks and vehicles, motorcycles, everything go through the stuff. Trains go through it. I mean, Europe just going through fuel. And if you can't get large amounts of fuel every week, every month, and you run out of fuel, you lost the war. Why? You can't move your warships, you can't move your planes, you can't move goods around with trucks and trains. You're dead in the water. You got to surrender to get oil. So you still think China and Russia are going to sit still and do nothing and just say, Xi Jinping will go to Vladimir Putin and say, well, Vlad, give me another shot of vodka. I mean, we had a good idea, but that Donald Trump character blew it up on us. We got to come up with a new plan. Trump's going to try to, when he gets Russia and China on the ropes, he's not going to just let them get off the ropes. He's going to try to punch him and punch him and punch him into submission. He's not just going to, say, well, you lost this one. No, he's going to try to bring him down. His idea of make America great again would be that, the UN is gone. The Board of Peace runs the world, and he's running the Board of Peace. And would it be good for the Americans? No, he'd be horrible towards you. The only people that would benefit are the Satan bots and the transactional ones at that. He would, he'd be terrible for us. For you, he'd be terrible. He's not going to help you. It's going to help him, and he's going to try to confuse the people with his great speeches about how much he's done for them, and then every year he'll give them a $2,000, economic bonus or something like that. That's what they spend on a bottle of wine over dinner, $2,000. That's what he'll give to a family for a whole year. If he was going to be nice about it, he'd give you $75,000 a year, something like that, or come up and give people a minimum guarantee. The way he could assure himself of staying in power is give the Americans a minimum guaranteed income, which wouldn't be a lot, maybe $3,000 a month at best, maybe. So you could still work, or if you didn't want to work, you could stay home. And then they would probably drop Social Security. You don't need it. You get your $3,000 a month. And then they could drop the income tax system, get rid of the Federal Reserve. None of this is ever going to happen. He's just going down. Is this it? I don't know. Maybe he conquers Iran and prophecy gets fulfilled and they're completely destroyed. And now China and Russia and North Korea and Belarus and probably 10 or 15 other countries are sitting there trying to figure out how they're going to get rid of Trump because they're scared to death. And the Democrats in America are going to try to get rid of Trump as well. So it could go that way too. I don't know. It says there'll be ruler fighting ruler. Well, when a judge overturns Trump's actions, that could be ruler against ruler. It says against, it doesn't say fighting. When the governors like Trump took the United States out of WHO, which was probably a good idea, World Health Organization, and then California as a state to defy Trump went in and joined WHO as a state. That could be ruler against ruler, you see? So it's very difficult. I'm going to take a break for a minute. I'll be right back. That's from Jeremiah 50:51. I think his big mistake is this Board of Peace. No, it will be soon. So, to me, the Board of Peace could be opening the door to do evil in our sight because we disagree with them. I can tell you where I think the disagreement's going to come. They're not going to disarm Hamas. You think Turkey and Qatar and these countries are going to go, I think Egypt, that they're going to go bomb Hamas? They're going to tell Trump, you can't disarm Hamas. They want to be able to defend themselves against the Jews. But Trump knows you can't get people to come over there and invest billions of dollars in building resorts and casinos if Hamas is armed. So he has a paradox. And he might wind up turning against Israel and turning against these Arab states. Trump's afraid to bomb Hamas because he doesn't have congressional permission, probably could never get it, and they might impeach him over it. Imagine he killed 30,000 people, Hamas, and then it probably would have got another 15 or 20,000 civilians. So Iran could kill 50,000 civilians, but Trump can't. So what does Trump do then? So he's looking for somebody to kill Hamas if they don't disarm. But he hasn't found it. He thinks he did, but he didn't. So maybe this Board of Peace will just blow up, like they'll resign. Trump will be insisting that you have to disarm Hamas, and they'll just quit. Then instead of having 21 or 24 people, we'll have 11 or 12, And it'll fall apart. Maybe that's what happens. I don't know. Everything Trump touches, Trump has a reverse Midas touch. The Midas touch is based on an old story in a book where this guy, what was his name, King Midas, everything he would touch would turn into gold. Trump has like the coal touch, COAL. Everything he touches turns to coal or garbage. He doesn't do good. So his Board of Peace may just fall apart right before his eyes. And then eventually Israel will be forced to destroy Hamas, and that could turn Trump against us. I don't know all the details, neither does anybody. Walking around on Earth as a human. No, I don't think anybody knows it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think so. But I sure think that we're reaching a point now. See, we're all busted up. We're all worn out. We all want to get to redemption. We know what's going to happen. See, go back to 1998. Did we know what was going to happen? No. Did we understand the United States was the daughter of Babylon? Practically very few people. Some people did, but very few. Around 2008, it caught on. That's when people really started understanding it. As I put the pieces together, back in 98 or 1988. Oh, let's go back to, let's say, 1988, for instance. Did people in America understand what was going on? Nobody knew what was going on. Everybody thought it was always going to be the way it was, and there was just the very beginning of Messianic congregations. They popped up around 1983. Before 83, there was, I think, one in Philadelphia or two. Now, I know there were people back in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s that had Messianic congregations. They were called Jewish congregations or churches or something like that. They had a few people that would meet together. I mean, there was a few, maybe there was 2 or 3 of these in the United States, or 4 at one time. It was very, 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 very tiny. And they were normally Satan bot run, I'm sure. But in the 80s, it started growing like wildfire, okay? Messianic congregations were popping up all over the place, and church people were coming there to see it because it was a phenomenon. And that's when I started, I would say, looking back in retrovision or going backwards. That's when stuff started happening. There were Messianic congregations popping up that were not Satan bot led. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And they didn't last long. But because they didn't know spiritual warfare, they didn't understand their enemy and stuff. But they meant well, I guess. And they didn't have the true gospel, so they were in sin. So it opened up the door to Satan. And they didn't survive, and they got taken over by Satan bots, or they got busted up, and they just stopped having meetings and stuff like that. That's in the 80s. I saw that. In the 70s, nothing. There was this one outfit in Philadelphia. I don't remember the name. They were pretty good size, and that's all I know. You see, it's easy for a church to start a Messianic congregation. How? They take people from the church system. The church probably has multiple branches. So they set up, maybe they get 20, 30 people to go to the meetings. So right away the meetings are full. And they get musicians from the church to go over there and make music for the church. And that's how I saw Jews for Jesus do it. They had musicians big time. So they got a storefront in the avenues. It was a storefront that was like a railroad car straight back. And it went back about 50 feet, and it was 10 and 12 feet wide. That was it, probably 12 feet, 10, maybe 50 by 10, 50 by 12, something like that. So what they do, they put a bathroom in, well, 2 bathrooms, right? They put a kitchen in a way that wasn't much of a kitchen, but they put it up against the wall, and they had a sink, and they had, I believe, some burners on the stove, and they had a microwave or something in an oven, something like that. They had a refrigerator. They had cabinets, and that was it. And then the place had where the musicians would set up, so they put 6 or 8 musicians there. And they'd call a meeting, and they had chairs. They would seat 20, 30 people. But from Jews for Jesus headquarters was in San Francisco. And they probably had at least 25 to 40 people working there, something like that, around there. So they took a lot of those people and told them to go to the congregation meetings to fill it up. So they would go there, and they had the musicians there, and then they had money. So, of course, they bought this meeting place. They had the money for it. And then they had food. They would have a spread of food. They would run meetings Friday night, Bible studies and song and praise, and then they had a genuine fellowship where people would hang around. So the Bible were this. They had a service that maybe went less than an hour. or an hour, not much, if I recall. And then they had a lot of food, and people would hang around and eat bagels and lox and pastry, different things like that, things to drink, coffee, tea, sodas. They didn't have booze or anything. And people would actually hang around. And it was in a safe neighborhood. The parking was the pits. You had to walk to get to your car. It was, and they built it up like that, quick. And in a matter of months, they outgrew their space. So they got another space, more like a building, where you could seat perhaps 50 people if you had to. I'm pretty sure you'd get 50, maybe 60 in there. It was basically a big room. And, it had heat, it had air conditioning, they had chairs, they had the kitchen, they had the food, they had the musicians, the same thing, people filling it up from the Jews for Jesus ministry. And then as the seats got fuller, less and less of the ministry people would come because they made room for the congregation to grow. And they were all Satan bots in that organization. They did hire people that weren't Satan bots, but there were very few of those. And they were miserable. I knew one. They made them miserable. They're not pleasant people to be with. So their congregation expanded to a bigger facility. See, this was just catching on. People were saying, wow, the Jews are coming to faith and stuff like that. It was pretty weird. Then in Israel, like in the early 90s, they probably had 12, 15 Messianic congregations in Israel. Now they got about close to 100. They're SBOT run. That's why they're pretty much left alone. But I think Ben Gvir and Smotrich would want to run them out of Israel, which would put fear in the Christians because they view this as like them. So it would be, but Ben Gvir and Smotrich, I don't think, care for Christians, neither do the ultra-Orthodox. The people are never going to put up with a Stasi or a Gestapo type police department to stop people from resisting the government with protests. People in Israel are not idiots when it comes to that, and they'll see how stupid an idea that is. Ben Gvir is like a double-edged sword. He cuts both ways, and he can be bad too. You see, the government of Israel right now is comical. It's so screwed up. It's laughter. You got the ultra orthodox on one side, you got the ultra right on the other side, and you got the liberals mixed in, but they're not really in power. And it's comical. The ultra orthodox make a mockery of the system by exploiting Netanyahu and how weak he is, and they have him give them increased stipends of money to go to their yeshivas. Those are those learning institutions called the yeshiva, and they say they study Bible and Talmud and whatever they study. They pray for Israel. They don't pray. They read prayers out of a prayer book. That's not praying. That's reading a book out loud. And they say that role of them praying for Israel should exclude them from the draft. And Netanyahu supports him. I mean, it's a joke. Netanyahu does anything he can to stay in power because he has criminal cases over his head. He doesn't know what to do. Like the little old woman who lived in a shoe and didn't know what to do. Trump, too. He doesn't know what to do. Netanyahu just is gone. He just bounces around like a pinball, like a ping pong ball or a cat with an aluminum foil ball that gets batted around like that. That's Netanyahu. Imagine if house cats were as big as your average dog. You had like 50-pound house cats. Wouldn't that be something? You know, the cat gets outside and just jumps 18 feet in the air and lands on the roof of the house and lays down to lay in the sun, and jumps down. I don't know what it would be like. There are people that have bred these exotic cats, I mean, predatory beast cats with house cats, and they get them up in the 25-pound range. They sell them for many thousands of dollars, and they have spots. And some of them could be up to, between 50 and 80% wild cat. And that's not a wise animal to keep around. Somebody wants to play around and have one that's 20, 30% wild. That's one thing, but, you know, you're better off with just a nice Maine Coon or something like that. That'll get up to 15, 16 pounds, maybe 18, but they're not big fat blobs. And they're very strong. They're almost as strong as a dog. They're very powerful, and they're extremely nice, and they fit in with the family extremely well. They'll make friends with all the people in the family. They won't just make friends with one or two people in the family. They'll try to get everybody in the family to like them, except a very small child. Because a very small child will pull their hair, will try to look in their ears, and, stuff that they're not going to like. I'm talking a 1 or 2 year old. They won't hurt the child. They'll just stay away from the child. So if the child comes to try to pick them up or hold them, they'll just, sprint away so the kid can't catch them. They won't hurt the kid. No. They'll sleep in the bed with you, but what they'll do is they'll get on the pillow on top of you, dominate or something. But if you don't like that, you make it clear to them, they'll just sleep in the bed with you. Um, they're clean. They're always cleaning themselves. They're cats. They're not gonna. You can play with them. What I used to do is, take a cardboard box, make it into a little house with little windows, right? And then the cat would crawl in the house, and there's little windows there. And I'd take a pencil and stick them in the windows, and the cat would keep swatting at it. And they'll do that with you for a long time. They'll do it for an hour even. Sometimes they like that. You just keep playing with them like that. But, they're not going to play with you like a dog. They're different, you know. Um, they like to sleep on you. Uh, they're cats. They're really nice cats. I don't know why these people get the wild cats. If the wild cat loses his patience with you, man, he's gonna scratch you up. He's not gonna rip your throat out or anything like that, but he'll just scratch you up. You know, when you get into a 35-pound bobcat, you got to be starting to get pretty careful there. You can still pick him up and just throw. If he's attacking you, you can throw him off you or something like that into the wall, and he's probably going to try to bounce back at you. But then you can maybe get out of the room and shut the door or something like that. Um, once they start a fight, they don't like to stop it till the other side is dead. They're very dangerous. You don't really, I mean, they're beautiful and they're cuddly. I went to an animal park once and they had a cheetah there and they had him walking around the park on a leash with some guy. And he was purring and everything, and I was able to pet him. He was about 120 pounds, something like that. And he was beautiful. And people in South Africa and other places in Africa keep them as pets. They put him in the car with them and drive him around like a dog, and they put him on a leash, and they keep him around the house as a pet, you know. But I think that, if you want, now the cat's not going to defend you very likely. If someone broke into the house at night and he was there, the cat would be very, very worried about what's going on, because the cat's going to be thinking, I'm going to be attacked. The reason this person broke into my cave is to kill me. That's what the cat's going to think. And the cat, all could go all different ways. The cat could size the situation up, but it also could try to hide from the predator and see if the predator leaves him alone, or he may spring on the predator. If he springs on the predator, if it's a person, is likely going to die. A 125-pound cat attacking a person is a horse of another color. In a few seconds, he could kill the person. If you really want to take it to the fullest, I wouldn't get a cheetah. I would get, there's other ones to get that are even more deadly, a leopard. Oh, leopards are so fast you can't even see them move. I mean, they could cover 40 feet distance in a blink of an eye. They're so fast. And they go right for the neck. They're really dangerous things. If you really want to push it further, get a jaguar. Those things get up to about 220 pounds. Now you're talking lion territory. The 220-pound cat is, you're talking a paw, like 2 seconds maximum to kill a person. Someone comes in the house and you got one of them laying around, and they're going to look at the person and they're going to say, this is not a good thing, and just spring at it. They're going to smell the person. They're going to sense the person sweating, the heart's pounding. The breathing is heavy. They're going to think the person's there to kill them, and that's it. They're going to kill it. They're probably not going to go, if they hear something at the window, they may not go there and start making noises and stuff. They may go someplace and lay down quietly where somebody might not see them, and wait for them to come in and then kill them. People in other countries do this. They have jaguars, and they have people get mountain lions, regular American mountain lions, 125-pound, and they get bobcats, and they get servals and all kinds of other cats as pets that are, sometimes they're as little as, you could get wild cats that are 6-8 pounds. They're still dangerous. And then there's others that are 12, 15, 18, 25. And, I don't think it's a good move. I looked into it many years ago, and I spoke to a lot of people, and the universal reports came back, don't do it, don't do it. So many of these cats wind up being put into rescues, and I spoke to a woman that had a rescue for these cats, and she said she built cages and everything with concrete floors and heavy wire and screen to keep cats, and the wildlife service would get cats and from people that couldn't take care of them or didn't take care of them, and or didn't want them or whatever, and turn them over to her, and then she would try to place them in a zoo or something, and she kept them for a while. So it was a little one. It was a leopard cat. They're 6, 8 pounds. Some guy had her for a few years, and she really liked her owner, and then they got separated. What happens a lot of times is one of these cats winds up sitting in a window, and people see it, and it looks like a leopard because it's got the spots and everything. And the people have infants and small children and dogs and cats, and they phone it in. And the police will come and look at it, and the police don't know what to make of it. And they call like Fish and Game, and they know what to make of it. And they go over there, and if the guy doesn't have everything precise with papers and a proper cage and everything, you know. So he didn't, and they took the cat away and turned it over to her. So she said she went in the cage one day. This is a 6 or 8 pound animal. And the cage is probably 10 by 12 and probably about 7, 8 feet high. And she went in there to clean it, and the thing attacked her. She said it hit her on the legs and was biting and clawing her with the rear legs and raking her. And she said she got it kicked off her leg and got rid of it and ran out and shut the door. She said it thought that I was the one that separated her from her owner. Well, that's her version of it. She probably didn't like it because the cat probably thought she was keeping her from getting back to her owner. I don't think this woman understood it. But she said that she was scarred for life in just a few seconds on her leg from this little 6, 8 pound cat. They're really not, what you want to, have around the house, they could be, they're wild, and also some of them will use the litter box, some of them are more than happy to use the litter box. Others don't want to use the litter box. They want to mark. So they'll go around spraying in your house. What do? You're going to keep trying to clean that stuff up with the stink? Oh, you can't. They'll ruin your house. You have to keep rechanging the carpets. They could do it on the sofa. Their urine really stinks. And, it's terrible. What do? So they're a bad idea. But it got real popular about 30 years ago. People were buying these exotic cats for thousands and thousands of dollars. And you're not getting a nice cat. You can just get yourself a nice big Maine Coon. Or there's other brands that are nice big cats. Not that big. They get 16 pounds, maybe 18. Beautiful, though. And they'll sit in the lap, and they'll play with you, and they'll cuddle with you, and you can rub their belly. And they're not going to, the wildcats, you've got to play with them every day for a few hours. They got all that energy, because they're built for stalking and tracking and looking for prey. With a house cat, that's sort of been taken out of them, and they're more or less interested in, cuddling with you, which a wild cat will do too. But if you don't play with it one day because you had a bad day at work or you had to go somewhere, and you come home, they're going to be really mad at you, and they may try to teach you a lesson. Where house cat's not going to do that. The house cat, if it's mad at you, will walk away and sulk or something like that. It's not going to attack you, So people do crazy things. I mean, I've seen pictures of people with a mountain lion in their living room, and they're watching TV with a 125-pound mountain lion. That's very dangerous. Their paw is like this. They could take your eye out. They could rip your face up. They could really hurt you. People get grizzly bears. You got a 900 to 1,200 pound bear. What do you feed this thing? I mean, if you're going to feed him meat, what do you give him a day? He's probably going to need like 20 pounds or 15 pounds of turkey a few days a week, 3, 4 times a week or something like that. You know, what do you, I mean, I don't, what would you even want to be? I mean, a bear is really dangerous. A bear could take down a mountain lion. I'm not a real lion, an African lion. What's a 450-pound male lion going up against the 1,200-pound grizzly bear? What's the lion going to do to the grizzly bear? The grizzly bear hits a horse with his paw. He breaks the horse's neck. What's the male lion going to do? He might hurt the grizzly bear before he gets hurt, but he's probably going to get hurt. Grizzly bear's head is huge, like this, I don't know. People want to do things, I mean, you can get a horse. They're nice. You can get a miniature horse. Sometimes they're a little mean, but they're nice. You get these little small donkeys. You could have, if you want to get exotic animals, get something like that. The worst thing I think these little donkeys will do is poop in your house. Not gonna do anything, So I think, people would do well to stick with little birds and, parrots and parakeets and things like that. And dogs and cats, but people are weird. So here we are watching the thing with Iran, and I don't know what day it's going to go down. Is there a chance Trump is just going to keep trying to threaten Iran and go into talks with them? Yeah, I don't think it's going to work. But would Iran go into talks? Yeah. See, as soon as you start talks with Iran, if you're going to make this work, you have to tell Iran, listen, you sit down and talk with us direct. No intermediaries. Why? Because the intermediary is because they view you as an infidel monkey, a piece of garbage, a dog, and they don't want to be insulted by talking to you. So as soon as you decide you're going to use an intermediary, you're lost. Do you understand? You say no intermediary. They say, well, we're not talking to you without an intermediary. You say bombs away and walk out. Will Trump do that? No. Would Netanyahu do that? Oh, yeah. He might even not bother giving him an explanation or ever showing up for talks. Netanyahu is a bomber, not a talker. He hates Iran. He personally can't stand them. So Trump doesn't know anything about negotiating with these people. What Trump wants here is a repeat of Maduro. Okay? He wants to get Khomeini out of controlling Iran by killing him, by abducting him and putting him on trial, or any voluntarily getting him to leave, anything. And then put another regime in place. Does he have another regime in Venezuela? No, he doesn't. He hasn't really affected any change of great substance in Venezuela. So what's up with that? I don't know. I don't know if Trump knows what to do next. What about Iran? Well, it looks like he's going to attack because he's setting himself up to handle the attacks that are going to come from Iran. But he can't really handle the ballistic missiles so well. He could only handle the drones. So let me check something from back in the 12-Day War. How long it took for the missiles to travel from Iran to Israel. Let's get to the bottom of this. All right. You got to give very specific directions to AI to get it to dig for you. But this is the type of thing that can take you a half a day to find on the internet or longer. Okay, so the distance from Iran to Israel varies by the launch site and the target that it's trying to hit, which makes a lot of sense. It varies between 1,300 and 1,500 kilometers. So 1,500 is 900 miles, maybe 750 to 900 miles. The flight time estimates were 10 to 15 minutes from launch to impact. Some reports were 10 to 12 minutes, some were 15 minutes. So they're saying these were hypersonic type missiles. So they were going 5,000 miles an hour. 4 to 5,000. I heard 4,400. And that's about what I think they were going. Okay, it seems to add up. That's about where Iran didn't get anywhere like 10 to 12,000 miles an hour or anything like that. It was, 34. I would say it's probably 3 to 44. But I hear in the 4,400 miles an hour. That's probably right. So that's probably Mach 6 or something like that. 5 or 6. Um, so it's probably going a little bit faster than twice the speed of a really fast fighter jet, something like that. 2.5 times. I could believe that. So if Iran launches stuff like that from a disguised boat at 200 miles away, so this is going to be an interesting thing to watch. Now, that's how their missiles were going back in June. So you got 6, 7 months down the road, they may have made improvements, and Israel may have made improvements in their detection systems and so forth. So the real challenge here is if Iran is right and they have dozens or hundreds of missile launch sites that are embedded under the ground and under rock and everything like that, and also mobile missile launches, which are pretty hard to knock out when you don't know where they're going to be or where they are, we could have a bad price to pay. But so will Iran. So that's what we got going on, and I don't know what to tell you, but I would say this: expect surprises, things to happen that you don't think are going to happen. Don't think everything's going to go the way Netanyahu and Trump want it to go, because that's probably the last thing that'll ever happen. Okay? It's going to go differently than they think it is. They don't get what they want. They're going to be confused and bewildered. Can this lead to the destruction of the daughter of Babylon? I'm in Israel. I'm not in America. Can it lead to the destruction of the daughter of Babylon? Yep. People are saying, what state am I in? Or something. I'm not in a state. I'm in Israel. I'm in the Galilee. Perhaps you heard of the Galilee in your Bible. If you have a Bible. How long do you think the daughter of Babylon has till it gets destroyed? None of us know for sure, but I think we're coming down to it. We've been in recompenses. Look, here's what. Go to Hosea 6:1 and 2. I'll read it to you. This is the key to what Israel's punishment is for killing the Messiah. It's very clear to understand it. I'll read it to you. It takes a very brief period of time. Let's try that again. Hosea 6:1 and 2. Come and let us return unto the Lord. So that's not speaking of the church, it's speaking about Israel. For he hath torn and he will heal us. He hath smitten and he will bind us up. After 2 days, now it's not a 48-hour punishment on Israel, 2 days like that. Remember what Peter said, 1,000 years is like a day unto the Lord. So it's a 2,000-year punishment. Okay? And I would say time's up, you know? So after 2 days, will he revive us? That's kaya, that's to bring to life. And that's referencing the appearing when we get everlasting life. Arise, shine, your light has come. You'll be emitting light like Moses from Mount Sinai, that kind of thing. In the third day, he will raise us up. That's not a rapture. That's the millennium. And we shall live in his sight because we live in New Jerusalem with him. So because now this is where I don't have a scripture. The Lord told me on August 10, 2023, we're in recompenses. That's the payback to the nations over the disagreement they have with him over Zion, over Israel. And he's punishing them. And that's been going on for about just a month shy, or a few, actually February 10th, I think, would be 2.5 years. So that's a pretty long period for recompenses in my book. I don't think it's going to go 10 years, and the nations have been losing. Now, the year of recompenses is not a literal calendar year. It's Shanat, not Shana. So it's a prophetic period of time, you can think of it as. So we don't know the day or the hour. But then there comes the same Shanat of redemption. That's the period of redemption. And in the middle comes the day of vengeance, which is a connector between recompenses and vengeance. So let me show you how that works. So Isaiah, let me get, where am I? No, I gotta get out of here. Isaiah 34:8. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance and the year of recompenses for the controversy over Zion. So you have it there, the day of vengeance with the year of recompenses. Give me a minute. We'll be right back. And I'll do this right with you. It's in 3 places. I'll cover it. Not yet, not yet.
I'm sitting here waiting to wait on you and study. I'm saying, help yourself. I'm not sitting here waiting to serve you.
Oh, okay. I'm just making an announcement. That's all. Okay, great. Okay. All right. So, that's the first one. Isaiah 34:8. Now, because you might not have heard this taught in the churches, doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Now we got to go to Isaiah 63. Was it 62? 63, I think, or 64. We'll find it. No, it's not here. Let's try 63. Yeah, it's Isaiah 63:4. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. So that's the Shanat, the period of my redeemed. That's the redemption year. Okay. So he's saying the day of vengeance is in his heart, and the year of my redemption is come. So it's just, so the day of vengeance is tied to the recompense year, or the Shanat really, and the redemption. So it's sort of in the middle. So I think that's the day that Jehovah and Yeshua appear in the clouds, not come to earth, and the nations are destroyed. Jeremiah 30:11, that he scattered the Israelites into throughout history, which now that can't happen until the scattering of the Israelites is over. Okay, so it couldn't have happened in the past, because to this very day, right now, the Israelites are still scattered. So it has yet to be fulfilled. Okay, now it has it in another place, and let me see if I can find that place for you. Well, just an interesting one here is of 62, Isaiah 62, 1 and 2. For Zion's sake will I not hold my peace. In other words, it's going to take action. And for Jerusalem's sake, I will not rest until the righteousness thereof is go forth as brightness. Rise, shine, your light has come, the glory of the Lord has risen upon ye. Isaiah 60, verse 1, I believe. And the salvation thereof, a lamp that burneth. And the Goyim shall see my righteousness. Didn't say they're going to be righteous, they're going to see it, not experience it necessarily. Those are the heathen. And all kings thy glory, Israel's glory. And when I say Israel's glory, all those that are in Yeshua are in Israel. And all Israel shall be saved. They don't know it, but they are. Some know it. I hope they all do. And thou shalt be called by a new name, which the mouth of the Lord shall name. Well, that hasn't happened yet. Thou shalt also be a crown of glory in the hand of Jehovah, and a royal diadem in the hand of thy God. That hasn't happened yet. Thou shalt no more be termed forsaken, neither shall thy land any more be termed desolate. But thou shalt be called Hepzibah, and thy land Beulah. Not now, that doesn't mean my dog owns the land. Just kidding. For the Lord delighteth in thee, and thy land shall be married. Now, that's when the daughter of Babylon, the whore, says, I will not sit a widow. See, that's because she believes she's married to the land of America and never going to leave it. So as a widow, she no longer has a husband. She's not married to the land. That's the kind of thing that is. Okay. So verse 62:5, for a young man marrieth a virgin, so shall thy sons marry thee, and as the bridegroom rejoiceth over the bride, so shall thy God rejoice over thee. And that's not yet happened. I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day nor night. You that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence, and give him no rest till he establish and till he make Jerusalem a praise in the earth. See, so you have license to keep nagging the Lord or praying or, asking the Lord to make Jerusalem a praise in the earth. If you want, I'm sure the Lord won't mind it. You could do it, I think. It's the watchmen that are really the ones that are doing that. But I think if you started praying to him a lot about, setting up Jerusalem to be righteous and all that, I don't think he would mind. Jehovah had, even if you did it a lot, I don't think he would mind, my opinion. Jehovah hath sworn by his right hand and by the arm of his strength, surely I will no more give thy corn to be meat for thy enemies, and the sons of the stranger shall not drink thy wine, for the which thou hast labored. But they that have gathered it shall eat it and praise the Lord, praise Jehovah, and they that have brought together shall drink it in courts of thy holiness. Go through the gates, prepare you the way of the people. Cast up the highway. Gather out the stones, set up a standard for the people. This never happened in the days of Yeshua. They never set up a highway or anything like that. Behold, Jehovah hath, and the Jews were basically in Jerusalem and Judah in the land that time. They didn't have a diaspora, so they weren't coming back. Like the people weren't returning back to Israel because they were in Israel. Okay. Behold, Jehovah hath proclaimed unto the end of the world, say you to the daughter of Zion, that's us, behold, thy salvation cometh, you appearing in the clouds. Okay, and the word for salvation would be Yeshua or Yeshua. I think it's actually Yeshua, because he's really, that's his name. He's the giver or provider of salvation. Cometh, behold, his reward is with him, and his work before him. And they shall call thee the holy people, the redeemed of the Lord. That's after redemption. And thou shalt be called sought out a city not forsaken. That's referencing Jerusalem, which was forsaken for many, many, many centuries. Many centuries it was forsaken. Let me see if I can get this to reverse back like it's supposed to. I want to bring it back a chapter. I gotta do it the hard way. It's an apple. Junk. All right. Where did we go? Isaiah 61. Now, this is back to the vengeance and redemption and all that. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, that's your redemption, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of Jehovah, that he might be glorified within them. All right, now let me kind of explain this to you, because there's a lot here. To appoint unto them that mourn. That's Zechariah 12. After they see the appearing of the Son and the Son of Man in the clouds, they mourn. All Israel mourns. All the tribes in the land mourn. That never happened when they killed Yeshua, of course. Okay, so this has not yet happened yet. The acceptable year is the good year. When you look at Malachi 3, and Elijah's training the Levites to make the offerings acceptable unto him, that is ties to it, I suppose, with the redemption year, where everything's going to be, it's a good year. It has different meanings. It could be acceptable, it could be a good year, a pleasant year. Okay. The day of vengeance, that's a yom, that's a 24-hour day. I believe the day of vengeance happens in a day. I think he wipes the nations out, as he says in Jeremiah 30:11 and Jeremiah 46 verse 28. I think that happens real fast. But we go back to verse 1. And now this is also in the New Testament, but it says the spirit of Adonai Jehovah is upon me. So Yeshua's preaching in the synagogue, and he's saying he has the spirit on him because Jehovah hath anointed me. So he's saying Mashiach. That's the word for anointed. Let me check it. Yes, it's correct. It's Strong's number 4886, Mashiach. So he's salvation anointed, Yeshua HaMashiach. Both those words are used in this context here, in these verses near each other. Okay, so anointed me to preach good tidings. That's good news. That's the Bible. Now the churches teach a bad news, but we teach a good news, because that's what the Bible teaches, a good news. Unto the meek that had sent good tidings unto the meek. He had sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, that's us, to proclaim liberty to the captives. I'll explain that to you. And the opening of the prison to them that are bound. That's speaking of the dry bones that are going to come to life and come to Israel. It's in Ezekiel 37, the first half. And the captives, remember, it says he went to lead captivity captives the 3 days when he was down in the earth. He went and he preached to those that were in the dry place, the Israelites that were getting punished. And he told them that there would be a day when they would get out and they would be the dry bones. And the ones that were in Abraham's bosom, he led captivity captive. Well, he took them from Abraham's bosom up to heaven. Now, you see this in, now they don't teach this, I know that, but the Bible does. You see this in Zechariah 9. I'll read it to you. It's probably halfway in the chapter, maybe verse 7 or 8. Let's see. Where do we go here? Here we are. It starts in verse 11, Zechariah 9, verse 11. For thee also by the blood of thy covenant. Well, when the covenant was the circumcision, and that happened, and you had blood, right? The blood of thy covenant, that we're in covenant with God, that's what that thing means. I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit where there is no water. That's where the rich guy and the beggar got carried to the gate outside the rich guy's house to eat the crumbs that fell off his table, and they both died, and the beggar went to the bad place. The rich guy went to the bad place, the beggar went to Abraham's bosom. The rich guy saw across the chasm no one could cross. He saw him in Abraham's bosom, and he said to Abraham, "Can you send him over here and have him put his finger in a drop of water to put it on my tongue, because it's very dry here." And okay, that's where your dry bones are, and that's the place, okay? The pit. Gehenna, you might in English refer to it as hell. It's not the lake of fire. Thy prisoners out of the pit. That's the dry bones coming back. People don't like that, but that's what it is. It has nothing to do with the church. It's talking about Israel, not the church. There. Wherein is no water. And then it says in verse 12, turn you to the stronghold, you prisoners of hope. Why are they hoping? Because Yeshua went there about 2,000 years ago and told them this would happen. That's the hope. Because remember, he bound their ears and closed their eyes, lest they turn to him and get healed and escape the punishment. So that's why they get another chance. He didn't go to the Goyim and bind their ears and bind their eyes. He did it to the Israelis, okay? A lot of people will never accept that, but that's what the scripture teaches. Of hope, even today, do I declare that I will render double unto thee. when I have been. Okay, so they get a double portion in the land, like we did. That's the double. He's sort of giving mercy on us for the severe punishment we got. In Zechariah, I think 1, it says he just wanted a little punishment against Israel, but the Goyim made the punishment, I better read it to you, made the punishment much worse, and that's why he's so angry at them. But I'll read that to you. See, these are things the churches will never tell you. Okay, it's in Zechariah 1, but where? Let's find it. We'll pick it up in verse 14. So the angel that communed with me said unto me, Cry thou, saying, Thus saith Jehovah of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion. Jealous means he wants us back. With a great jealousy. So he really, really wants us back. That's a good thing, because if you're in Yeshua, you're in Israel. And if you're in Israel, you're in Israel. Duh. Okay, verse 15. And I am very sore displeased with the heathen. It doesn't say that. It's saying I'm very, very angry. Super angry is where I would, extreme anger is what it is. Okay, something like that. Doesn't translate accurately in English. And I am very sore displeased. That's very, very washing it, making it much, much less potent than what it says in Hebrew. Okay? With the heathen, the Goyim, that are at ease. What does at ease mean? Oh, they're hanging out in Moscow in their palace. They're in Mar-a-Lago. They're in the Royal Palace of England. And they don't care. That are at ease for, they're at ease because they don't know what's going to happen to them. For I was but a little displeased, that's towards the Jews, for what they did. And they helped forward the affliction. They made it worse for us, like the Holocaust and, stuff like that. Therefore, thus saith Jehovah, I am turned to Jerusalem with mercies. My house shall be built in it, saith Jehovah of hosts. But he's going to build it, of course. And it comes down from heaven. This is not New Jerusalem, this is the next temple. And you read Ezekiel 37, the last 3 verses, you should figure it out. And a line shall be stretched forth upon Jerusalem. Cry yet, saying, Thus saith Jehovah of armies, my cities through prosperity shall yet be spread abroad, and Jehovah shall yet comfort Zion. Oh, that's so sweet. God himself comforting us, can you imagine? And shall yet choose Jerusalem, then for his city to run the world from, basically. Then lifted I up my eyes and saw, and behold, 4 horns. A horn, what does an animal fight with but its horn, right? Animals that have horns generally don't have big teeth like that, like a lion, or claws like a bear, And I said unto, a bear's claw is probably the size of that middle finger I have, or bigger yet. It's like a knife. And I said unto the angel that talked with me, what be these? And he answered me, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, Israel, and Jerusalem. So this is that have scattered the whole Israel, the 10 tribes, the 2 tribes, and Jerusalem. And Jehovah showed me 4 carpenters or workmen. Then said I, what come these to do? And he spake, saying, these are the horns which have scattered Judah, so that no man did lift up his head. They didn't walk around with their head up proud, they were downtrodden. But these are come to fray, that means terrify, to terrify them, cast out the horns of the Goyim, so they don't have any ability to make war anymore or fight, which lifted up their horn over the land of Judah to scatter it, to send the Jews all over the place. So we got 4 workmen. My best guess, 2 witnesses, Enoch and Elijah, Apostle John. There be some standing here today that shall not taste of death until they see the kingdom of God. That's John. But it doesn't have some in the plural. When you read the Hebrew, it's someone. It's an individual. That would be Apostle John the Beloved. And that's 3. And who's the 4th? The anointed prince in Daniel 9, I think 26. And you find them in rather good detail in Ezekiel chapter 45. Those are your 4. My best guess. So I told you the temple comes down from heaven, so I better back that up. And I will. So we go to Ezekiel 37. Hezekiah, I think is his name really, but we'll say Ezekiel 37, verse 21. And I will call for a sword against him. Nope, sorry, I'm in the wrong. I'm in 38. It's your iPads. Okay. 37. Let's try this again. So Isaiah 37, Ezekiel 37. And I believe we're going to verse 26. Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace, that's Brit Shalom, a covenant of peace, with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant, as in everlasting life, with them, and I will place them. Now, the word for place is Strong's number 5414. It's Natan. Place means place or put, right? I placed my hand on the chair. I placed my hand on my head, right? Or I put my hand on my head, right? Okay. And multiply them. Well, that's reproduce, as in have a lot of children. And will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. Okay, let's get into this word set. That's the same word as Natan. It means place or put. So let's read it without the church upsetting it for us. Multiply them and will place my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. So he puts the sanctuary in the midst of us. The middle or the midst of Israel is Jerusalem. So he puts it in Jerusalem forevermore. Here's more scripture twisting. The word for everlasting is 5769, olam. It means from now on into the future, kind of. Okay, something like that. For everlasting. So in verse 26, the word olam is used as everlasting, and at the same verse, the word olam is used as evermore. See, they mess with it. It should say everlasting. Well, I mean, it's so close, but why not stay consistent with it? I don't know. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Well, that means we get the tabernacle also. So if you go to 2 Maccabees 2, chapter 2, you read that Jeremiah hid the actual tabernacle with the ark and the altar of incense in a cave and sealed the cave up so the heathen wouldn't get it, and says it'll be given to the Israelites when God shows mercy to them. And that's any minute now that'll happen, or any day, I guess. My tabernacle also shall be with them, yea, I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And the heathen shall know that I, the Lord, Ani Jehovah, do sanctify or make holy Israel when my sanctuary shall be in the midst of them. So when the sanctuary is in the midst of them, the heathen know that he made Israel holy. Now, if a bunch of goofy rabbis built a temple with a lot of John Deere equipment, would that make the heathen know that God made Israel holy? Of course not. If the temple came down from heaven, would they pick up on it? I think so. All right, I'll get a prayer. Oh, wait a second. Let me check something. I want to see if I have any prayer requests. I certainly don't want to forget it, but I don't think I have any, and I don't. That's why I don't think I have any, because I don't. Okay, let's get a prayer out. For all of us, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers in their households. I pray we would have your strength, stamina, and endurance. We'd have your healing and recuperative power, and we'd be getting healed constantly for things that need healing. And I pray for us and our animals and pets to be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. I pray we all sleep well at night with no bad dreams or nightmares, just nice, soothing, calming, relaxing dreams. I pray we have no accidents or tickets or breakdowns or getting stopped, stuck, or stranded with any cars or vehicles. And I pray we don't get discriminated against by any entity or body or government or local government or courts or judges or employers or potential employers, etc. I pray we don't get frauded, robbed, or ripped off. I pray all our packages show up promptly and swiftly without breakage. And I pray if we need jobs, we could find good jobs. If we have businesses and we need clients and customers, we get those. I pray we would have adequate money and then some. I pray the unclean spirits can't bother us, and you loose from off us any works of the unclean spirits or those that serve them. They'd be null and void, no effect against us, no matter what kind of work they set up for us. And I pray we remember the way Satan works is he tries to make you think you deserved something. Like he'll get you in trouble at work and make you think you deserved it when you probably didn't, or the government dishing it out, or a court, or a neighbor, or a friend, or a landlord, or any of this. Don't let them fool you. If you did something wrong, you did something wrong. But if you did something wrong and you knew you were doing something wrong, that's one thing. If it, okay. If you didn't know you did something wrong, that's something else. But he'll always try to make it look like it's official. Who the heck is he? He makes the rules. His people form a government that the demons tell him how to form. And then people run around thinking it's real. It's real. It's not. It's bogus. It's Satan crap. It's not real. All right. And I pray that we all understand the scriptures better, and we would have peace and joy in our hearts and lives, and we would be able to come to Israel and meet and have places to bring people that are new to the faith or need help. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem as well, and I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this if you're a believer, even though it's a video. And let's do a little spiritual warfare. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I bind all unclean spirits from being inside any person who owns, operates, controls, works for the governments of the United States, Israel, Iran, Egypt, Canada, UK, France, Germany, Russia, Ukraine, China, and North Korea. I bind you unclean spirits from being inside any person who owns, operates, controls, or works for any of these governments. Any unclean spirit inside any of these people has to immediately leave now, never to return unto them again. And the same shall apply to everybody that lives in the same house as them. And no unclean spirit can be in these people for the next 10 years continuously, nor shall they be able to for the next 10 years continuously. Guide them, lead them, direct them, help them, assist them, lie to them, or deceive them, and communicate with them using people or other means of communication. And they shall not be able to go into or appear in or near within 500 meters of any government building, land, vehicle, airplane, boat, offices, or houses that these governments own, possess, or control for the next 10 years continuously. And there are no workarounds to these commands, and I submit all this to you, my Heavenly Father, to be completed, and I pray it be completed, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with this as a live stream or as a video, and I would hope you believers agree with it. It will give it a lot more strength, and I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I hope you got something out of this, and I'm out. Thanks, guys.